On a Tuesday, what's up? What's happening? Craig Hoffman with you here for the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Just a few moments ago out in Ashburn, Ron Rivera gave what is usually his Wednesday presser on a Tuesday. Of course, the short week. We'll let you hear that. And, well, we were planning on starting the show with it, and then Ron went early. So here's a few minutes of Rivera taking some questions from the press and a significant personnel announcement that is pending for the game on Thursday.
For Dallas. So, feel pretty good about them, and I think they had a good day today. Brought some energy out at walkthrough.
The Thanksgiving Day game is always special. What do you appreciate about this game and being a part of this game on Thursday?
Just the fact that it'll be a couple extra days to relax a little bit.
With the short week, you guys tripped up against Chicago on the short week last time around. Was there anything you take from that or do differently this time around? Yeah,
different thought process as far as I'm concerned in my messaging with the players. So hopefully it's the right one, and I think our guys have gotten the message. I think they've came in and they had a good day today. They really seemed focused and brought some energy, and they seem to be in a good place right now.
Last time we saw you guys play the Cowboys, that was Sam's breakout game last week of last year. Is there any confidence he can take from that or that you guys can take from that as a team?
Well, I think we can, just knowing that, again, that was Dallas's first unit and they were still playing for playoff positioning. I mean, they were in, but it was all about positioning at that point. And so, they came out and gave a good effort, and I thought, Sam handled the situation pretty well.
And, Coach, you guys are a pretty running back screen-heavy team compared to the rest of the NFL, so are the Cowboys. Does that mentality inside your own offense help prepare your defense?
It does, and again, just having a feel for those types of things, and hopefully we'll be on it. They do run several screens, and for the most part, they use a specific personnel grouping, and then they try to manipulate it by the movements and actions that they use, and try to get it to the backs, and hopefully we've studied that and prepared ourselves, and hoping our guys get that and as one of their tips and clues as they look into it.
And then coming off of a 3-interception game from your quarterback, the Cowboys like to get after the quarterback. They like to intercept the ball. They do so pretty well comparatively. Is there more of kind of a fixation on the mental side of things than usual coming out of a game like this, going against this opponent?
I think the biggest thing more than anything else is just really trying to understand your opponent, what they're trying to do and when and how. I mean, that's probably the thing that we as coaches look at and try and give those ideas, those clues, those tips to the offense and defensive players, so that they're prepared, they're ready for those things.
You guys have talked about complementary football and having all three phases in sync, and it feels like at times you got offense playing well, defense struggles, vice versa. Some games. Is there anything you can do going into games to get them in sync? I mean, I know it's.
You try every day. You try to get these guys to understand that, and you do what you can. But each game has a personality, and as it unfolds, you try to get things corrected during the game, and hopefully, going into a game like this, our guys know what's at stake. You know what the opportunity is. You know who your opponent is. It's really truly they're playing in one of the greatest football rivalries, period. And so they should understand, and if they don't know it now, I think they'll learn, especially the young guys, what this is really all about.
And what is the biggest challenge of this defense that Dallas has? I mean, it seems like they're learning all three levels, but what's the biggest challenge in your mind?
For us as defense, I think the biggest thing more than anything else really is just explosive plays. I mean, C.D. Lamb is about as good a player as there is in this league right now. He's an explosive, dynamic player. A lot of things that they do, are surrounded around him, and so it's about being able to contain him, have somebody over the top, and just understanding where and how they're going to try and use him. And then you got to be careful. You spend too much time on him. They've got running backs that are dynamic runners, and you've got to pay attention to them, because not only do they run the ball well, but they're also a threat with the ball, thrown to them. And tight end has always been a part of what they do offensively, and they've got enough offensive firepower that you really have to be aware.
Why is Dak playing so well right now? What's he doing, I guess?
Well, one of the things it looks like is he's getting the ball out of his hands quicker. And I think a lot of it has to do with, some of the things that coach has done in terms of, taking some of the things he did in Green Bay and implementing them.
What have you made of Dak's longevity? He's the longest tenured quarterback with one team in the league. I guess, what do you make of just his longevity in Dallas and his ability to excel there?
Well, I think early on, Jerry Jones figured that's the guy he wanted. And so I think that when the owner's all in and, does that for his quarterback, that signals a pretty clear message to everybody that this is our guy unless something crazy happens to him.
You mentioned how tough the turnovers were in the last game and how just it's hard to overcome that many. How can you guys work on fumble prevention at this stage, going short week, all that sort of stuff? Well,
in the short week, it's hard because your time is trying to, prepare to get ready to play, and the X's and O's are all part of it. But I know you guys see it because, we constantly work on it. And you guys have had the scene in front of you when our running backs are working with, Coach King and Coach Jordan are working with those guys. We do a takeaway Thursday where both the offense and the defense work a circuit, and trying to create takeaways and trying to protect the football. And so it's something that you got to continue to work on and make sure it's fresh in the minds.
Last year when you guys were in Dallas, Dan Snyder hadn't even announced yet that he was putting the team up for sale. Do you ever stop and reflect? I know you've had a lot of whirlwind years here, but just what this last year has brought in terms of change and all that?
Oh, yeah, I have. And it's, but the biggest thing, the most important thing more than anything else really is, just putting this team in a good spot and working to, continue to grow and develop.
You mentioned the messaging is different on this Thursday night game versus the last one. What is different about the way you're messaging to your team?
Well, I think the biggest thing more than anything else is this is a divisional game, and it's against probably our arch rival. So it's a different kind of messaging. It's a different kind of outlook, approach, more so than anything else.
Got time for one more. Good? All right.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, that is Ron Rivera just a few moments ago. What you missed there at the very beginning is some injury updates, and some of them good, some of them not good. That's the nature of injury updates. On the not good side, Alex Arma and James Smith-Williams, DNPs with their hamstrings. They missed last week's game. Also listed as DNP today. I haven't seen anything definitive of whether he'll play or not. But Emmanuel Forbes did not participate in the walkthrough yesterday. You remember he left the game on Sunday with an elbow injury. He returned. He played well, but DNP the last couple of days. I am pretty sure James Smith-Williams is not playing. That hamstring is not good. And then Arma seems to be a little bit closer, but we'll see if he can get back on the field Thursday night. They definitely missed him. They've been much better with him this year offensively than without him, which makes you wonder why they decided not to use him for the first, 6 weeks of the season. The good news, I know some of you will roll your eyes and groan, but Cody Barton is going to be back on Thursday. The middle linebacker who was starting to play his best ball when he went down with an injury a couple of weeks ago is back. That also slides Jamin Davis into a more natural role for him as that weak side linebacker where he's at his absolute best. So hopefully, David Mayo did a good job against the run. That's what David Mayo is very good at, and not just kind of good. He's real good against it. Made a ton of plays in the backfield this past weekend, but we all know his struggles in pass coverage. Barton gives you a lot more athletically in that pass coverage department. So can he be a big factor against the team that really does like to use the tight end? We'll figure it out on Thursday. But Cody Barton activated, ready to go. He will play on Thursday. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, it is a Vibe Check Tuesday. So, oh boy, I wonder how this is going to go today. We take your calls. How you feeling about the team? 301-230-0980. Guessing it's not good, but I don't know. Maybe some of you have found some zen, some pocket. You could share it with the rest of us. 301-230-0980. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday next on the Hoffman Show. The Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at the top of the hour, some film breakdown from the Giants game. Why couldn't Sam Howell get going? And obviously the turnovers are part of it, but never felt like the offense was clicking on Sunday. How do they fix that moving forward? What was the problem in the first place? Logan Paulson and I dissected the tape, come up with our best shot at an answer to that. You'll hear it at 5 o'clock. Lynnell in studio live at 5:30 for Overreaction Tuesday. But before we get to Overreaction Tuesday, we got to complete the vibe check. It's a vibe check Tuesday where we take your calls at 301-230-0980. That is on the Ace Law listener line. That's the sheet of paper. I probably that didn't make sense to anyone. Vic is back in today for Ant. I don't know why I just did the paper shake thing, Vic. I think I'm just losing it. I think I've got holiday brain. It's like senioritis when you're in school.
Yeah.
Like you just know it's coming.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to get through the day.
I mean, I'm not even in tomorrow, so to me, this is my Friday.
Yeah.
So I'm already in senioritis mode.
Yeah. I'm just lucky you got the show started.
That is very
That
true.
wasn't even a pot shot at what happened yesterday. That was just a general statement.
I mean, yesterday, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Completely made a mistake.
We
So far, I've
really
been
commander
perfect.
secondaried it. Some real serious miscommunication.
I've been perfect so far.
You
Now I
have.
just jinxed it. So
Anyway, we're going to go to the Ace Law listener line, which is a read that I should know by heart by now and frankly do, but I always like to double check, and it's written on this sheet of paper. In a wreck, Ace Law helps you get a check. Call 8888 Ace Law. All right, let's get into it. Let's start off with Rob in D.C. on this Vibe Check Tuesday. Rob, thanks for holding through Vic and I's nonsense. You're on the Team 980.
What's going on, guys?
What's up, man?
Man, look, we played the Cowgirls this week. I'm excited, man. Football is football. Man, look, they ain't like I heard earlier. They ain't beat nobody yet. So I mean, everybody got their head down, head tucked. I looked at the record, I looked at the playoff things. We still in the hunt for this thing. Even though it ain't probably it probably ain't the best outlook, but I'm a fighter. And we in the fight, so that's what the season is. We supposed to be ballers. I got pride in my team. I feel good. So my vibe is a good vibe, my happy vibe. I got a happy vibe. I just seen the coach release Shaq Leonard. I heard Doc earlier talking about we need somebody to punch the ball out. And we want to make a change. We got to start bringing guys in who are established playmakers. We need a linebacker. That'd be a good pickup, the guy that masters the punch out, But I feel good, man. Dallas ain't beat nobody. The last time I checked, we beat them bums the last time we played. So I'm not scared of them. I'm ready. With our time we won Dallas, I'm ready.
Rob, I think we need you to give the pregame locker room speech. I think they respond to you better than Rivera.
Man, look, and the thing about it is, I think everybody want to get rid of Ron. Man, keep Ron for one more year. Keep this thing going one more. The thing is, we hop off a train too soon here. We don't ever build anything. Take the responsibility. Ron does not need to be in charge of player personnel and all the other positions he's never had before. Let him be the head coach. Let the coaches coach. Get somebody in here, football people who know how to do football, and let's run this thing back next year. I don't feel like we're that far off. We
all right. I think we're good, Rob. Thanks for your positivity. I hate to hang up on Rob because he was very positive, but I feel like his positivity was going to result in a lot of people throwing things at the radios. We went too far. I admire Rob's stick-to-itiveness as a fan. I admire Rob's optimism. I admire Rob's spirit. I do not necessarily agree. Not necessarily. I'm not even going to couch the statement. I do not agree with his assessment of Ron Rivera. There is absolutely no reason to run any part of this back. He's been charged with building things for 4 years, and the best thing he has built is a blank slate for someone else to come in and do something with. Like, yeah, someone else with player personnel, but like, what has he actually done? He's hired a terrible staff. He doesn't do a very good job of the head coach stuff. And the best thing he did was create about $90 million in cap space and get a bunch of early picks next year, which is due to the fact that his current team is not very good. And also the Bears don't seem to know what they're doing. So there's that. Vibe Check Tuesday at 301-230-0980. Let's go to our guy Lap in DC. Lap, what's up, bro?
Hey, what's up, Craig? Hey, happy holidays to you, man.
You as well.
Thanksgiving to you and your family. Hey, man, also real quick, shout out to Glenn and Dave, man. I was at the Wizards game yesterday. They showed me some love,
love
man.
that.
I got to go in there and see them, man. Yeah, so, they know me very well. I'm probably the die-hard Wizard fan of them all. So, yeah, man.
They're putting the real die in Die Hard this year, but we can talk about that another time. What you got on the Commanders on this Vibe Check Tuesday?
Oh, yeah. Well, I know a lot of people down with the season. I like the last caller's positivity, man. Let's go out there and try to, win this game, man. It's all good. Just try to go out. We still, we out with our family. It's Thanksgiving. It's still a rivalry, whether they have dominated the rivalry, whatever. We still feel good when we get a win. It's just, against the Cowboys. I know Ron has taken the air out of the balloon over the years because we haven't won against the Cowboys, let alone winning the division. And that's my issue with him. He doesn't take accountability. He doesn't take the division game seriously. I want a coach that's going to come in and let's get some division wins. And it's no sense of urgency. If you look at the first half of a lot of these games are winnable. You know what I'm saying? We always come out flat in the first half of games. And
except for Atlanta, where they came out well in the first half and then weren't very good down the stretch and had to hang on. They haven't put together a 60-minute performance literally all year, which is
definitely
brutal.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. But that's just been my take around over the years, and that's why I want Eric Bieniemy or someone else with a mindset that's going to relate to these players on this team, because we do have talent. And if you're not going to blow the team up entirely and you feel we still have a chance to compete or make a playoff, push at some point with this roster, then you need to get a coach in here that can utilize the talent, because we do have the talent on this team. So
all right.
I guess we just have to see. Yep.
Yeah, no, Lap, thanks for the call as always. Good points there. I think the thing is with this roster is it probably was a little overrated in spots, but it also part of now I'm having an epiphany live on, not necessarily an epiphany live on the air, but some dots are connecting of some various epiphanies that I've had / things I've been thinking about. They're coming together. They're coalescing, like your Jell-O that you're making for Thursday. Jell-O coalesces, right? Kind of congeals.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's not my area of expertise.
Do you cook anything?
Steak.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for Thanksgiving, no.
No.
Okay.
That's what the family's for.
Okay. Vic's like, I have a family, so they can cook me food on Thanksgiving.
Aha.
So, there's kind of two schools of thought that I actually think go together, right? Like turkey and gravy or whatever your favorite combination of stuff. Some people don't like their food to touch. Anyway, the point is, you've got a coaching staff that is bad at teaching, and you have a roster that people think is overrated. And I actually think that holding those two ideas is possible at the same time, but to think that they're unrelated is silly. It's not that they're both true. It's that the reason we thought the roster would be better is there would be a progression amongst the players. Like Cam Curl would continue on this ascent he had been on to the very top of safeties in the NFL. PFF had him as one of their highest rated players last year, period. And I think their second highest rated safety on the season. Cam Curl was on his way to being an excellent, excellent football player. And this year he's fine. He's good. I'd rather have him than a lot of other players, but he hasn't continued to progress to superstardom in the way that you would have thought. Cam Curl was on pace to be sometimes we use the Madden ratings system. Cam Curl was an 85 last year, and we're like, this dude could be in the high 80s. He could be an 89. That's a hell of a player. Instead, it's he's kind of an 84 this year, an 83. It's not a bad football player. That's not what we thought we were getting. Benjamin St. Juste looked like he was ascending, if he could just figure out the ball skills thing, to be a really, really good top flight outside corner in this league. And they've continued to jerk him around position-wise, and he hasn't gotten any better on the ball skills thing. And his technique has been less consistent this year than it was last year. So is that on the player, or is that on the coach and the kind of the culture's inability to progress him? And so when we have this team that is filled with youth that is not getting where we thought it would be, did we overrate the roster, or did the coaches not fulfill their part of the bargain to get the roster where it was fully capable of going? Which becomes a very interesting question for the next people, because they have to answer that. They have to look at this roster and go like, no, these dudes aren't good, we need to replace them, or no, those coaches were terrible, we've got what we need, watch us make this, these seeds blossom. And that's a key question in terms of when you have $90 million in cap space and you have 3 top 37 picks as it stands right now, how are you going to disperse those resources? And that is a key thing for whoever is next to figure out. And it's something that we'll learn depending on how they spend that money in free agency and how they draft starting next year. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday here on the Hoffman Show, so we take more of your calls next. 301-230-0980. How you feeling about the old Mandos? That's next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Taking your calls on the Ace Law listener line, 301-230-0980. If you're in a wreck, Ace Law helps you get a check. Call 8888 Ace Law. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday. So how are we feeling about the old Washington Commanders.
We are the Commanders.
I feel like we should go actually full on. Yeah, that's about how things are going. 301-230-0980. Let's keep the calls going with Gary in Upper Marlboro. Gary, what's up, man? Thanks for calling. You're on the Team 980.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. The vibe is not good. I think that this team I think we've all overrated the talent to some degree, okay? I think that there is a lot of change that needs to be made on the field. I just think that our roster is not as good as we thought it was. And it's, a lot of people, I think we have a tendency to overrate or overblow players on a weekly basis, and I think it's catching up to us. I just think that the roster has not been put together well, and our record is what it is. And I think that next year, with a new head coach, new GM, I don't think that there's anybody on the table right now, with the exception of maybe Terry McLaurin and Howell, that if somebody calls, you don't answer, okay? And I think that's everybody. I just don't think the roster is that good. I think that it's the third best roster in the NFC East, but they lost twice to the Giants, so they may be the worst roster in the NFC East. So I don't think that there are any untouchables on this roster right now. And if they have a top 10 pick, then even at that point, you look at quarterback. If you think there's a player that's got better upside than Howell, you take him. But outside of Terry McLaurin and Howell, outside of drafting in the top 10, I think everybody should be on the table for a potential trade if somebody calls. So I just think we are what we are. We're a bad football team.
Gary, I appreciate the call, and I don't disagree with most of what you said. I know that seems drastic, but look, the price has to be right. Like, if someone wants to give you a couple first-rounders for John Allen and Daron Payne, then sure, like, if that's the game you want to play, but, like, I'm not taking a second for those dudes. Because here's the thing about when you're a roster at this stage and also with their cap situation, like, the whole point is to get a Daron Payne or a John Allen. Like, John's a little bit older at this point, which is crazy. Like, I'm getting to the point where the guys that I covered when I was on the beat are, like, almost 30, and you're like, they're on the back end of their careers? What is happening? Anyway, that's my own personal journey, somewhat tied to the football team. But, you're trying to get those guys. And so if you draft a John Allen, the upside to, or John Allen level player, the upside of having that versus the current John Allen is that they cost less. Well, you don't need the cap space. They've got, and actually I think trading John would result in quite a bit of dead money, although I'm not sure. He might be in the year where you can get away with that. But trading Daron at this stage of his contract without a massive rework is going to result in a lot of dead money. And so it's actually not worth it. But theoretically, yeah, if someone wants to give you the right price, sure. And I wouldn't want to give up Terry for basically anything, but you have to start thinking about timelines and development and what you want, certain guys to have. And, I wouldn't trade Terry because I don't think there's it's harder to get better as a culture guy and harder to find a better receiver. Not that there aren't, but you're not going to get your hands on someone who's better than Terry. And if you have a young quarterback, whether it's Sam or someone else, that's a pretty valuable resource. So, again, McLaurin, all but untouchable. Allen and Payne, for both play and contract purposes, are all but untouchable. But pretty much everyone else is, sure, open for whatever. With that said, I don't think they're that far away. And I think with the resources they're going to have available, I think it is possible for a new coach and GM to come in, fill the holes, and for a new coaching staff to get a lot more out of the players that they currently have. They've got some dudes who can play. Jamin, former first rounder, is he doing what you hope when you drafted him? Of course not, but he was overdrafted. But if he was a second round pick, you're like, oh, dude's pretty good. He's a really impactful run player, and he's better. He's getting better in coverage all the while. He just keeps getting put in crap situations where it's like, hey, chase Saquon Barkley 40 yards up the sideline. No thanks. So they need to figure out how to stop doing that and to support him more. And to their credit, whatever credit you get for having the touchdown already scored on you, they did do a better job of kind of capping Saquon Barkley on some of these wheel routes and other things that they tried to get later in the game after that initial touchdown. And it's just they already gave up the touchdown. So it's not like it's not possible to provide Jamin the support he would need and any linebacker would need. But, like, Jamin Davis is a good football player. And, how much is he going to cost long term, and is it worth it? That's a different conversation that the next group is going to have to figure out as he enters this will be year 4 next year. And you have a 5th-year option decision to make. But, like, a guy like Quan Martin, super talented in terms of his physical abilities. Can you get more out of him? Yeah, absolutely. It would help if their secondary coach, was better. Like, just say it. Like, it's pretty clear that unit is suffering majorly from a lack of pinpoint coaching and, expert level knowledge and teaching. So what do you get when you combine, a Benjamin St. Juste, a Quan Martin, a Percy Butler, these super athletes that are pretty smart as well, with a better defense that has clearer rules and clearer communication strategies. These are the kinds of things that I wonder about with the new staff moving forward, not to mention some of the offensive line. Like, I think if you make a major investment in the offensive line, like, you're going to get a lot more out of everyone else on the offense. The skill positions are already good. And that includes Sam. Like, I watched the Chiefs last night, and obviously the second half, it did not go well for them. But you watch in the first half as they're able to move the ball and some of the protection stuff they're able to do, because they have a really good young center in Creed Humphrey and a couple of guards that are pretty good. And for whatever reason, they looked at what they had here and they're like, yeah, we can do that stuff. And it's like, no, you can't. Maybe with Mahomes you could have, not with this young quarterback who's still getting used to the speed of the game and doesn't have as many tools in the toolbox, even pre-snap. Nevertheless, obviously post-snap is Mahomes, who's maybe the best post-snap quarterback that we've ever seen in terms of creating stuff. Let's go to Keith in Clinton. Keith, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
All right, listen. What's the common denominator between last year's coaching of defensive backs and this year? The players were developing last year because you had a good developing coach last year, which we got rid of because they didn't want to put the blame on who was supposed to be put on. So now he was developing Cam Curl very well, St. Juste very well. He's no longer there this year, and you see a drastic change in the defensive backs. The one thing I will give them credit for, the defensive coach right now, the defensive back coach right now, is he's just taught them how to be more aggressive and turn and look for the ball. That's about it, because you could get a first down on us last year as far as it could be 3rd and 18 for another team, and they would get a first down. I also please don't get a first down, So that when he went, so did the development. I'll admit, he wasn't great as far as technique, but developing those players, he did an outstanding job at developing Cam Curl and St. Juste. And for 2 years, he was developing Cam Curl. So that's good. But he's gone. Now, the other thing, I'm not, and I want everybody to hear me because I don't want anybody calling talking about we're saying tank. We're not going to make the playoffs. I'm getting tired of being 8-8. We never get a top first-round draft pick, and you got to understand this. If you don't get a top first-round draft pick, you're not getting a top second-round draft pick, nor a top third-round draft pick. So we're constantly falling in the middle of the pack, constantly not getting the top draft picks. We're not getting the good talent. And so, therefore, I'm like this. We aren't doing anything anyway. You already got rid of our top 2 good defensive ends who are bringing the pass rush, which if you're blind, if Stevie Wonder, you may not be able to see it. But Stevie can see this, that we aren't doing anything on defense now as far as the pass rush is concerned. Now we have to blitz more. Well, why didn't we blitz more when we had the defensive ends? But anyway, let me stick to the point so I can get off. So now that we don't have that, we got rid of the ends, why don't we, and I'm not saying tank, I could care less about beating Dallas. We did that crap last year. We tried to beat the Giants, and it dropped us back 4 spaces in the draft. Okay, my thing is this. Now take a look at these players who are on the sideline, who are backups, who we keep bringing back every year, and we keep saying every year at the beginning of the year, we got great backups. Well, okay, well then put them in there now. Let's see, because the starters aren't doing anything. Put the backups in. Let's see if we need to clear house during the offseason, but get a good look at everybody. You can't The other guys were saying, why keep these guys? Anybody, we can get rid of anybody because anybody knocking down the house now. So let's go ahead, look at the backups. Stop being so pressed about winning games. If we win them, we win them. But the most important thing is start preparing for next year. This year is over. Unless you want to be blind and think we're going to beat Dallas. And I'm a diehard Redskin fan, but I'm a reality. I'm living in reality. I'm not going to sit up there and sugarcoat stuff, and I do have hope. So don't come on the radio after I get off talking about he don't have no hope. I'm realistic. And if you think I'm joking, hey, I don't gamble, but I'm willing to gamble against somebody with this one.
Yeah, no, Keith, thanks for the call, man. And you're correct. They're not very good. Michael Phillips put it very well yesterday. They are closer to the number one pick than they are making the playoffs. It's reality. And by the way, the schedule is brutal coming up. They have, maybe their easiest game left is the Jets, and their defense is nasty. The Rams, that's the other one that's, not terrible, but you got Dallas twice. You got Miami. You're 0-4 in the division. They're not good. I do think, go back to kind of his first point, the Chris Harris thing. This is the problem, is they should have fired Del Rio weeks and weeks and weeks ago. There's no one to do it. And that's the double whammy of letting Chris Harris walk. This is why they should have elevated Chris Harris in the offseason and made him your defensive coordinator here. You lost something that was good. You then, by the way, compounded your bad defensive backfield coaching by drafting in the first and second round defensive backs. And now here we are in the end of the season with coverage debacles all over the place and no chance at the playoffs. So I don't know how much you need to, play the reserve. They're already playing a bunch of young guys. They're a young football team. And, Rivera, sometimes Rivera says stuff that's true, but that's also damning for him. You can't be in year one of a rebuild in year 4. But if you think of this as year one of a rebuild, they're in a great spot. They've got a bunch of young dudes, plenty of whom are getting probably more experience than they should be. You're going to find out if they're good, / you will set them up for future success because they will have seen a bunch more. And moving forward, you don't have a lot of big contracts because you traded some veterans. You traded some guys that you were going to have to pay a bunch of money. And you got extra draft assets and capital and all that stuff's very good. The problem is when you're in year 4 of your regime, you're supposed to have built something by now. They were here 4 years ago. Why are you not here? Why are you not better now? But it does set up the next people to come in. And I think, again, the Chargers' job I expect to open as well. And if you're going to have Justin Herbert to coach, that seems like a pretty good deal. But you get, hopefully, your pick of future coaches and GMs, because this is a place that they are going to want to come for all of those reasons. And by the way, you have a new owner who is very well respected in sports, period, and is ready to support you in the right ways. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Got a couple of calls. Mike, Lenny, Cliff. We'll get to all of you guys next before we get to Take Command at the top of the hour. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Vibe Check Tuesday time as we continue it for another segment here on the Team 980. 301-230-0980 is the Ace Law listener line. If you're in a wreck, Ace Law helps you get a check. Call 8888 Ace Law. Let's go back to the phones on that Ace Law listener line, and let's go to Mike in Mount Airy. Mike, how you feeling about the old Mandos?
Hey, Craig, thanks for taking my call. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.
Thank you.
The vibe is
you
not
to you
good.
and yours as well.
Appreciate it. Yeah, the vibe is not good. The entertainment value is just week to week keeps decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. Let's go down this rabbit hole for a second. I'm wondering, and you may have covered this before, would we get any worse? Would we play any worse if we got rid of Ron now? I don't see favorable outcome with Dallas. I don't see even worse of an outcome with Miami. Then there's a bye week. So what do you really lose by getting rid of him right now?
So we have covered this, but I will happily rehash it.
Okay.
And if you want to push back on any of it, by all means. But here's what you lose. Right now, Eric Bieniemy, you have to. Do you agree that you have to replace him with Bieniemy? He's the assistant head coach.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
And obviously Del Rio, he's the reason. Del Rio's a big reason why you're in this hole in the first place, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So you have to replace him with EB.
He's gone at the end of the year anyway, but we need him anyway if you're going to get rid of the head coach.
Right. So if you put EB as the head coach, right now his attention is solely on the offense. And by the way, he's not exactly crushing it. He is a young play caller, relatively speaking, and he is learning how to do that job. Now you're dividing his attention away from the offense. And really, if we all agree, this is sunk cost. We are in a lost season. You're not going to be able to win no matter what. It's not really going to help you. And even if it does, your chances of making the playoffs or making a run in the playoffs are slim anyway. The most important thing is developing Sam Howell. And if that is the case, I do not want to pull Eric away from undivided attention on Sam and the offense. He is having a hard enough time being a full-time play caller as it is, and adding more to his plate seems like a way to make the long-term prognosis for this team worse and not probably really affect the short term. That would be my answer.
I'm just looking for a spark.
Yeah,
I'm looking for a spark out of the team.
I hear you.
And that would definitely give it a spark. But other than that, I agree with you.
I hear you. Mike, I appreciate the call. Thanks. And again, happy Thanksgiving. The other thing with EB is sometimes sparks cause combustion. And in a lost season, EB's a tough coach. And that's fine. And again, this is not to rehash the thing from training camp, but do you really want to, in a lost season, grind on guys? Really, at this point, if we're being realistic, I know there's some of you that are listening right now that are going to hate what I'm about to say so much. Ultimate passion, and maybe Mike, who we just let go, is one of those people, and maybe someone on hold is about to rip me to shreds for this. Just land the plane. Honest to God, just land the plane. And I know you want to fight to the very end, but again, you currently have the 7th pick in the draft. You're not good. You're 4-7, and you've lost to the Giants twice, and you lost to the Bears in a game where you never were even competitive. You're not good. Your defense is terrible and currently unfixable. So, since that's the case, the goal is to land the plane without incident. The goal is not to try to get back on the flight path. It's where's the next airport? Let's just get this thing on the ground. We're not going cross country here. We're not going transatlantic. So when you hear a guy like Sam Howell today, when asked about, Ron went over to Sam in the locker room after the game and said something to him, and it was kind of in front of all of us. Ron wasn't doing it for show. It just happened to be while the locker room was open. And someone asked him about it, and Sam was super complimentary of Ron. He's like, look, I appreciate playing for a coach that always has my back. And I think that's how a lot of the players feel about Ron, is even if they might know intellectually that he's not that good at the job, he knows he has their back. Now, Benjamin St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes might feel a little differently after Ron's comments yesterday, but generally speaking, Ron hasn't lost the locker room. They're not good. There's a difference. And so if that's the case and you can get to the end of the season and then blow everybody out and start over, if you're Josh Harris, I think that's the best course of action. Let's go to Lenny in Maryland. Lenny, thanks for calling on this Vibe Check Tuesday. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate thanks for the call, and hopefully you have a great Thanksgiving. Not sure how the game's going to turn out, but the main points I want to make is, as the coach Hermet was once said in a famous interview, you play to win the game. You just don't play just to be playing it. And this is going to be a test of the character of the team moving forward now, because I tell you, they were exasperated. I think the fans were exasperated, as illustrated on that last pick six by Simmons. It truly illustrated to me what this season, the last couple seasons under Coach Rivera has been. Simmons just does like a back dive or something into the end zone. And I don't know if you noticed the beer can that was thrown into the end zone. It was truly illustrative of how everyone feels now. So the question is this team just going – I know we have the draft picks, and I know you mentioned just land the plane, but are we going to play to win the game like the Giants did? People were saying the Giants were just going to tank the season, but they played to win the game. So that's the whole point I want to make is we're going to really see – I mean, to me, it's tough with Rivera knowing that there's probably going to be regime change. Coach Rivera – but the hope. What are your thoughts on that? I know you land the plane.
Yeah.
But are you going to play to win the game?
Yeah, they're going to play to win the game. They're like, and that's actually, Lenny, thanks for the call and happy Thanksgiving to you too. Like, it's actually one of the reasons you don't have to fire Ron, right? Ron is going to, like, Ron sometimes I feel like is oblivious to the outside world in ways that are not good. And sometimes it can actually work to your advantage. Like, Ron is going to show up and do the job to the best of his abilities every single day. From a character and professional standpoint, when it comes to that aspect of the job, I have zero questions or reservations about Ron Rivera. The problem for Ron is the quote-unquote best of his abilities are not good enough. Like, his ability to do the job is not very good, which is why you should replace him expeditiously in January. After you hire a new GM and that GM is going to replace him. Like, he's not here for the long term. You know it. I know it. He knows it. But I do not think that will affect him coming out. I also think that the players on the field know, like, they're playing to win the game because they're playing for their jobs. And Logan has talked about this a lot with us on Take Command as a guy that was back end of the roster for basically his entire career. He knew that every single play he put on tape was his resume. And he literally had guys tell him, like, he would go block someone's face off in a late season game with both teams out of it. And he have defenders tell him, like, hey, man, like, relax, chill out a little bit. We're just out here trying not to get hurt and collect our checks. And Logan was kind of like, yeah, I'm trying to get my next check because I'm on a 1-year deal and I'm a veteran and I'm a third string blocking tight end. Like, there ain't a lot of spots for me. And so if you're a young guy and you think you have a long career ahead of you, you're trying to play for a bigger role. If you're a vet, you're trying to play for your next contract. And so if you want to shut down John Allen and Terry McLaurin or some of these guys that have been paid and whose spots are solidified, fine. But the players are going to win the game. The coaches are going to try to win the game. You have a decision to make as an ownership and organizationally if you would like to put some barriers in their way of demands to play younger players, demands to shut certain guys down. Hey, Ron, Mr. Harris here. I don't know if you know, but Terry has a hamstring injury. Do you understand? Like, who knows what comes up in the final couple weeks of the season here. But it doesn't mean that the guys that are out there are not going to play hard. And I'll tell you this real quick anecdote from the locker room on Sunday before we get out of here for the hour and then come back with thoughts, by the way, from Logan on Sunday's game after watching the film. De'Ami Brown sat at his locker as long as almost anyone I've seen in his pads, slumped over, just zoned out, miserable after that game on Sunday. If you're in those locker rooms, and this is why I think sometimes I get upset with callers or commenters or whatever, and it genuinely pisses me off when people disrespect the professional effort that these guys put in. The NFL is really hard. And to be a good NFL player is damn near impossible. And that doesn't mean that. And so when someone doesn't succeed, when De'Ami Brown doesn't run the right route or drops a ball, and he had a big drop in that final sequence, right? It's not that he's not trying. It's that there's a limit to his talent. And he's super fast and he's tough and he blocks his face. Like, De'Ami Brown tries really hard. He's a competitor that I want on my football team. He's just not a premier NFL talent. Good enough to be one of the best players in college football when he was at North Carolina. But that's how rare a special NFL talent is. It's about how high the bar is. But De'Ami Brown cares. And I'm not trying to either pick on or highlight, whichever way you're looking at this, De'Ami. It's just a very vivid example from this past weekend. And so, yeah, if De'Ami Brown is out there because they shut down Terry, De'Ami Brown is going to absolutely try his face off. He's going to go, you know what's to the wall on every single snap. Because that's who he is. It doesn't mean all of a sudden that he's going to become great. It just means that, like, you can tell, as you can say as an organization, we're better off losing this game for draft pick purposes. But good luck telling that to the players on the field who will always play hard. And, you know, and I'm talking like 98% of NFL guys are wired this way. There's a couple, of course, here and there that do wacky bits or whatever. But 98% of guys, hyper competitive, want nothing more than to win, and absolutely approach each and every practice and game that way, no matter where they are in the season. Because at the end of the day, it's the game that they love, and they want to get out there and they want to win. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, Logan Paulson's thoughts on the game from Sunday. Why could Sam Howell not get going? The answer next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. Live on YouTube after Commanders games. You can catch the Take Command the post-game show. The pre-game show is before the game. That's how that works. The pre-game, you get the point. Full episode of Take Command out today. And we went ahead and published it. Normally the tape review comes out Wednesday morning, but with a short week, we went ahead and pushed it already on your favorite podcast platforms and on YouTube. The full episode at 106.7 The Fan. But if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, the podcast, of course, hosted by me and Logan Paulson, then good news. We got part of it for you right now. For the full episode, you'll get a big, long discussion of the defense, some more thoughts on the offense, and here on the radio, right here, right now, as part of, well, first, I should hit the fancy not my beat imaging because, we have to properly introduce the segment.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in. Not my beat.
Right, that's what as I was saying, a breakdown of Sam Howell and why he and Eric Bieniemy just couldn't seem to get the offense off the ground. The turnover's an obvious start, but where to from there? That was how we ended the pod today. As for Sam's day, what do we see when we go back and watch? We watched a couple of the picks, and it's like, those are good decisions and bad throws. And obviously the one late, same kind of thing. If he's truly trying to throw it out of bounds, like that's the correct thing, and he just horrendously underthrows it. The one to Jahan, their protection breaks down, not necessarily because anybody in particular loses, but again, like a good pressure from Wink, take advantage of what the Commanders are trying to do. All of a sudden, it's a jailbreak. Sam's running out. He sees Jahan looping open, tries to throw it, doesn't get enough on it. Pick. He overthrows the one to Diami, but it's a good decision. If he throws it out in the grass, Diami probably is able to run underneath it for a big play. So the three picks, actually are, to me, not the worst of things, although the last one, obviously, results-wise, is about as bad as you can get.
Right.
But process-wise, not bad. But he just also never really gets going. There's nothing major that happens in the game outside of those.
I think that's the thing that I would just kind of look at, with him is, the first pick, I think that's the right decision, bad ball. The pick to Jahan, I think he's coming open. I think he probably makes that throw last week, but misses it kind of badly inside, whatever the reason. But I think outside of that, even, I just don't think he got settled in. I think whether it was the pressure, and there was a fair amount of consistent, relatively quick pressure that kind of unsettled him. Like we watched the touchdown, or not the touchdown, the red zone sequence, the one where he throws the ball to Logan Thomas. And I think that kind of encapsulates his day. I think, Logan Thomas is coming open, but Sam's a little accelerated. The back's open in the flat. Curtis is coming open across the middle. And if you can just let that breathe and marinate for a second, I think you probably feel that. If you get to the top of your drop, take your hitch like you're supposed to, you're like, oh, I can get the ball to the back, or I can get the ball to Curtis.
Right. Like, oh, that window to Logan's real tight. That's probably because that guy's not supposed to be there. Oh, look, Curtis is wide open.
Right. And I say, oh, well, and I'm sure fans are listening, be like, well, why doesn't he do that? And Dexter Lawrence has a pressure on that play. And I really felt like that was something that just changed the landscape of this game in a way that, we talked about how that was going to be an important matchup in the pregame, but it had such an outsized impact because there's a play later in the game where it's not a play action, but it's kind of like a shot look, right? Where Jahan is running like an out, up, back to a comeback, and Dexter gets a quick pressure. And so Sam's got to vacate. He ends up scrambling for a big play, 20-yard gain, but Jahan is wide open in the middle of the field. And talk about a play that would have changed the landscape of the game. Like, that would have changed the landscape of the game. It would have been a completion. Jahan, there's nobody around him. He's one-on-one with the safety. Who knows what happens, right?
Right.
So I think there's just so many plays like that. And then I think in addition to that, first off, I thought, EB did a great job designing like Logan Thomas's first catch. I wanted to call attention to that. It's out of 13. It's like a sail route. Beautiful. He came back to that play a couple times, and I thought the Giants did a really good job of matching it and saying, we understand what you're trying to do and how you're trying to attack us. And so there's not a lot of air to throw those footballs. And so how the Giants adjusted in terms of attacking and matching concepts, coupled with the pass rush, I think just made it very hard for Sam to get settled in. And one of the things, I was listening to some analysts that PFF did, or analysis that PFF did on this game, and Sam had 0 big-time throws in this game, which is
crazy for him.
Yeah, which is very.
He leads the league in them.
Yeah, he leads the league, and in terms of percentage rate, he's like 10th or 9th. He's got a very high percentage in addition to having a lot of volume. And I think when you look back at his best performances, there's always a couple of just like plays. You look at the New England game, there's probably 4 or 5. Look at Seattle, there's probably 4 or 5. And this game, there was 0. And I think that's the thing that is the most different about this game. I thought he did fine with the quick game. Thought he did fine with the keepers. But at that mid-level to deep where he's been kind of exceptional, and you see kind of the reason people are talking about him in this light as being the guy, that magic wasn't there today. And I think that's probably the biggest difference in the performance.
It's something that if he wants to be really good in this league, he's going to have to adapt to, because, you've seen it with Mahomes. The offense, when they had Tyreek, was able to hit a lot of that deep stuff. And what happened is also the nature of this offense and the ability for them to create misdirection and kind of leak guys out and have big plays. Teams just started saying, we're not doing that. Like, we're not letting you beat us deep. And Mahomes became so absurdly efficient underneath that they've still been Super Bowl caliber. And obviously, this year has been a little bit different. Their receivers are struggling and they can't seem to catch anything. And then the 1 or 2 shots a game, like Valdez Scanning drops it last night. And when those opportunities come, you have to hit them. But like the reason Mahomes is still the MVP and is still so good is because he just been ruthless underneath. Yeah. Very Brady-esque in the way that Tom used to dominate. And so, Sam is now 12, 13 starts into his career. It's okay for a young guy to have an off day. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden he's not the guy that his trajectory is really any different than it was. It's just kind of, more teams are going to do this. Like, you have to, one, be able to take those opportunities when they come, stay patient, still look for them, trust go through the proper process and hit them when they're there, but also just understand that means there's stuff open underneath, and the timing of that stuff has to be better so that you can just, death by 1,000 paper cuts it. But I would also say, in respect to this game, it's impossible to sustain long drives when you fumble. So, so much for that plan.
Yeah, and also I think, one of the reasons that they ran the ball so well is they were running them into pretty advantageous looks here, I thought. Because there were some kind of softer coverage. There wasn't a lot of like single high. It's a lot of 2-shell looks, guys back off the ball, guys deep, and then they're kind of relying on their front 6 to kind of make a bunch of plays, and they couldn't in a lot of instances. And I think that's one of the reasons why, to EB's credit, that he leaned into that. But I think, like we've talked about this before, and you've talked about, rushing frequency and what's the tipping point for the perfect EPA for the offense. And I think in this game, like, the fact they were running the ball so well was because of what Wink was trying to do. Because I think, when you look at the scouting report for this team, you've said this for probably 4 weeks now on the pregame show. If you were a defensive coordinator, you would play like the softest cover 2 quarters, cover 6, down in and down out, and be like, hey, man, you are going to run the football.
Right.
I dare you. And in this game, they did it. And I think the thing that is frustrating about it is that feels like the right approach, because you can get them out of that stuff. Then you can get back to some of those shot plays like we were talking about and describing, and Sam makes it easier for Sam. But you turn the ball over so much, you can't
never get back to the
going,
shots.
And like, so I think that's to me, that feels like what's going on with this team in this game. It'll be interesting to see if Dallas abides by principle, because they, while not as dramatic in terms of pressure rate as Wink Martindale, they rely on their front 4, and Micah Parsons create a ton of pressure. Like, do they say, hey man, we're going to kind of adopt a similar approach here and force you to run the ball more than you want to run it? So
yeah, we trust that you'll throw a pick 6 to Deron Bland because everyone else seems to. Like, we'll trust you to make the mistakes, and that's the challenge, right? And that's why there is that tipping point, because long drives are hard to sustain, and you have to at some point in there turn that soft, coverage back around. They start to cheat up a little bit, and you hit the big one, and they never got to that in this game. Last thing, real quick, I want to touch on. It does feel like EB is a bit predictable, and even when they try to subvert expectations, if you will, it almost feels like, oh, we're in 13 personnel. Don't expect a pass from us. And the deep shot to Diami is out of 13. Right. There's a couple of other times in this game where they bring in the big personnel, and it's like, we're going to subvert expectations, except for when you break the tendency so often, you're not actually breaking the tendency. You're doing your tendency. It's how tendencies work. And I'm just curious if you feel that when you're going back and watching the tape, because we talked about how well the Giants did subverting expectation, and kind of the contrast I think is interesting. Right. So I just feel like, maybe it's because we watch the team every week, but that's what scouts do. So if I can see it, professional scouts and advanced scouts can see it, but it just feels like when they used to bring in Alex Arma, although they were better about it with him, they bring in Alex Arma, I'm prepared for play action. They bring in 13 personnel in this game. I'm prepared for play action, as opposed to oh, we gotta stop the run. Oh no, they got us. They don't get that reaction from a defense because it feels very predictable.
Yeah, I think there's the overarching tendency of what EB wants to do, which we talked about pretty extensively, and I think the thing, for example, they are in 12 personnel, they motion Bates to the backfield as a fullback, and it's they're probably going to run a play action here, and they run a play action, right? And I understand you like the concept, you're trying to take advantage of a thing you like, a matchup you like, and they end up checking the ball down to Bates, ends up being an 8-yard gain. So there's nothing wrong with that, but I think there are plays that EB likes. I think there are concepts that EB likes. I think they tend to skew toward those concepts. In the red zone, they're going to run, I'll go special, and they're going to try and get the back up the seam. And that works, but if you run it all the time, people are going to be ready for it, right?
Right. And it's a lot of similar down and distance stuff too, where it's come on, we know based off that you're going to do this.
Right. And I think most coordinators have strong tendencies. And I think, this, we talk about Kyle a lot. Kyle has plays that he loves, and he's going to get those plays called a couple of times. I think the thing about Kyle is that when you watch it, and I've seen guys, Schwartz does breakdowns of the runs and all this stuff. And he's look at this run. And, I've been in the system. So I'm oh, that's just Zorro, but he's doing it out of 10 personnel with the receiver, and they're motioning, and it's the same run. It's the same rules for everybody, but it's disguised in his presentation, or this play action out of this shift and this little bump motion. And it's the same concepts, it just looks different. And I think there are times where it looks too similar. If I was going to, if EB asked me, there's times where I feel like it kind of falls in oh yeah, you liked at a 3x1, you like to run sail. Here you go. And I think that's one of the things about the first completion or the second completion of Logan Thomas down the low red that leads to the field goal is it's out of 13. They motion to it and it feels different. And all of a sudden it's sail. It's wide open. And you're oh, that's just a beautiful play. So he's got that in there. You know what I mean? But also I think I'm always of the mindset, because of the guys that I played for, that you can do that more. You know what I'm saying? Because of Kyle, because of Sean, I'm do that all the time. And that's an unrealistic expectation, but I think you can do it more. But I think to counter my own argument, I think he's been very successful with what he's done, kind of getting, because there is a school of thought saying that we are just going to run these concepts and know these concepts better than you can cover them. And I think there's a lot of value there. But in this game, obviously that didn't play out the way and a big part of it, we're going to say this a million times, is because you turn the football over 6 times. And
right. It's hard to get to the second level stuff when you can never get past the first level because you fumble.
Right. And I think the other thing is this is just a different way of saying what you just said, is there is, you want to layer stuff, right? You want to kind of get to the play action pass, but in the back of the defense's mind, when you're down and you're trying to score points, they're going to throw the ball. Even it's so funny. Even when I'm the OC at the high school, whatever, you throw an interception, right? And you're just it's 7-0. Nothing about the game has changed, but every coach comes up to you I like these 4 passes. And because you feel this urgency and this rush, and defenses know that too. And you could see that they were like, they're going to throw to get back in this game because there's an urgency. And I thought that's why I thought the drive, where ultimately Chris Rodriguez fumbles was so brilliant. And the drive that they got the field goal on was so brilliant because they ran the ball a ton. They were very patient. And then after that, that's when you felt that urgency come because the Giants were kind of moving the ball a little bit offensively,
Right.
and it just changes the dynamic instantly. So,
yeah, I think the other element of that is like managing the quarterback. He is still young and still is inexperienced. If you watch Chiefs Eagles last night, especially in the first half, obviously the Chiefs offense didn't do squadoosh in the second, but in the first half, like you watch all the orbit motions, you watch them, zing Kadarius Toney here and throw this smoke screen, where Mahomes has the option at the line to abort the run there. And like Mahomes on every single play is barking something different. And there's just a command and kind of a layering of the offense that is next level because he's been in that system with Andy for a long time. And if you were to go back and watch like first year Mahomes, I'm curious how much of that you would see. And so, Sam, over the course of time, whether it's with EB or whoever is here next, like hopefully that's something he can develop. But if I was EB, like last time we kind of ran into this rut, I put more on him and things got better. So that's also another thing to Eric over these, maybe not Thursday, but like over the mini buy and then over the big buy. Like, can we find things to implement that can help Sam have a few more answers and disguise things a little more, et cetera, et cetera. All right, that is from Take Command here on the Hoffman Show. If you'd like the full podcast, again, it is available now on your favorite podcast platform, which includes not just Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but could be perhaps the free Odyssey app. Coming up next here on the Team 980. Actually, I'll tell you, full setup for the rest of the show. We'll rehash some of the day's top stories at 6 o'clock. Ron Rivera with some injury news that's interesting about the Dallas game, and we'll also add some interesting stuff coming out of Sam Howell's mouth earlier today. So we'll get back to that coming up at 6 o'clock. 6:15. I may have stumbled into, in a text exchange with my wife, the origin of one of the world's great phrases that I never thought about before, and then also real things where people said into real microphones. But next, Lynnell Willingham comes in studio, hot takes ablaze. And you just never know what's going to happen. It's an Overreaction Tuesday next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, live on the free Odyssey app and streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It is an Overreaction Tuesday, and we have Lynnell Willingham with us live in studio. What's up, man?
How you doing, buddy?
How
you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I know that you've got to be ready to just lose it.
I feel like I've been kept at bay since Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Not on purpose, but it's just the way the schedule went this week.
Yeah.
I've never been more – I've had like 3 stages of emotions.
Okay.
Right? We can go back to the therapy couch
Yeah,
here
now
for a second.
I feel like I want the therapy music.
Watching it Sunday was the first time this year I got to sit and like watch the game without doing the in-game show. So like obviously that's cool. Love working, but that was just cool to get to watch the game from a different vantage point.
Right.
As it's happening, you almost kind of start laughing because it's like, no way, are we really going to do this? And then you eventually are waiting for that, proverbial other shoe to drop and for them to get it right. And it just never happened. And as we moved into the late night hours on Sunday, I went and did some TV over at DC News Now, and I kind of lost it on my way there. I mean, it is just ridiculous that we're at this point, and it feels like, and you can tell me if I'm overreacting, this feels like rock bottom in terms of the past 4 years. This feels like something maybe this team can't come back from. We all are talking about Ron and his job security moving forward. What about the emotional and mental psyche of this football team right now? Are you kidding? They know that Tommy DeVito is an undrafted quarterback. They know that his mother washes his drawers still. You don't think that bothers them? That they lost to this kid?
I mean,
and then
it definitely does. I mean, look, Sam Howell says all the right things, and Sam today in his press conference is like, we lost to a team that we thought we should beat. We thought we were the better team, and like we didn't play that way on Sunday. I don't have a problem with Sam saying that because he's right, and I think it's interesting. Like, obviously tomorrow, this time we'll be doing Never Read the Comments, and we got a lot of YouTube comments saying like this. Quit saying that the Commanders were a better team. They're not. And I'm like, go watch the other games. Like, the Giants have one other win this year, and it took a miraculous second-half comeback against the Arizona Cardinals, Josh Dobbs version. Like, week 2 Josh Dobbs version. Like, that, the Giants are horrendous. And they have some talent. Like, Okeraki's a good player. Dexter Lawrence is a ridiculously good player.
Dominant.
They have some talent on that team, but so does every NFL team. By NFL standards, they're not any good. And you just played a game that you were like battling uphill the entire time and had a miracle chance to maybe do something at the end. So like, they feel that and are embarrassed. And I don't think that's an overreaction at all. The question is like, often I also had another funny comment on our video from last week, and someone's like, I know these are supposed to be hot takes, but I agree with them. And I'm like, that's the thing about Lynnell. Lynnell has great information and great insight, and then sometimes takes it to an absolutely nonsensical conclusion. So I'm curious where the back half of this take goes, but like your front half, assuming that was a half, is absolutely spot on.
I'm gonna, and this is where I'm about to admittedly get nonsensical.
Yeah.
It's not even nonsensical. It's just, I'm emotional just like you all are, right? I just look at this thing big picture, and I'm frustrated for a multitude of different reasons. The ownership group, I feel like, I'm tired of seeing Magic's tweets. I want more than that, right? Show me that this is unacceptable. How do you do that? You make some sort of change to this coaching staff. Ron Rivera, probably the luckiest head coach in the past 2 seasons, and here's why. The game that he should get fired, they're on a short week. And then last year, he couldn't get fired this offseason because of the ownership change.
Sure.
It's ridiculous what's going on, and I think they're at a point right now where they need a new voice. And I don't agree with, and I think you may be one of them, Hoffman, making Eric Bieniemy the head coach for the final 6 games of the season or final 5 games of the season after Dallas. I don't see what's wrong with it. I don't see any type of issue with it. I think
you don't see
just have
any type of issue.
No, I just have to. I think it's up to Josh Harris and company to show to the fan base that this isn't acceptable, man. It feels like
for what? Like this is
what?
my question. For what? So that you can.
This is my thing. The rumors and reports that have come out in the past 7 to 10 days about how Bill Belichick is a real option being considered by this ownership group because they want credibility and they think a veteran coach is going to bring credibility. You know what brings credibility within the fan base? Showing that this S show isn't acceptable anymore. That's where I'm at.
One, I don't believe the Belichick stuff. I don't believe it for a second. We talked about it, and Breer's like a good reporter, but like when Keim comes out and shoots it down, when JP, like people that are more connected to the New England and the Belichick side have seemingly put that out more, or national folks have put that out more. People around here, as JP said, he was the first guy to mention Josh Harris, and he has heard that this is absolutely not true. So I don't buy, like, and then people, say that, like, oh, I've heard this, and then they speculate as the reason to why as the Tom Coughlin explanation. I don't think anyone has specifically even said Josh Harris wants Belichick because validity. He knows what gets validity. You win. And Josh Harris also has built other organizations, and he doesn't go, like, could he go for a big name in Doc Rivers? Yes, but he hired Doc Rivers in part because I think the NBA had a little bit of say about what was going on there in terms of who the GM was and all that kind of stuff after the process. But, like, Josh Harris hired Brett Brown as his first coach. Like, Brett Brown was a very highly thought of assistant on Greg Popovich's staff. It wasn't like he went big name hunting. He hired a great, assistant coach that a lot of people would have liked, and then they decided to invoke the process. So I think that if you think of how Josh Harris thinks about sports and using data and being kind of cutting edge, like, Belichick doesn't fit that mold at all.
Does Eric Bieniemy not fit that mold then?
I don't know.
I just think it would be.
I honestly don't know. Like, I don't know what EB's football philosophy is. It seems to be allegedly chuck it deep, but he doesn't actually ever chuck it deep.
Well, I think we can. And I know where you're going with that. Their explosive pass play numbers just aren't there right now, even though they're tops in the league in passing yards.
They've done, a ton of passing yards. It's by volume, and they also have hit, they've hit a decent amount of chunk plays in some games that they're like actually pretty high in like 15 and 20 plus yard completions, but they haven't hit a 40 yarder all year. Like they can't take the top off of defense, even if they can get a good high cross every now and again.
I mean, the reason I'm so infatuated by Bieniemy is because the impact we saw him have on the offense from day one in terms of just accountability. Can we have that spread throughout the locker room?
This is my thing. Like, do they? Like, is it better than last year? Sure, that's a pretty low bar. Nobody hired Scott Turner for a reason. So, like, in comparison to what's
the offense
been here,
isn't better?
I'm saying it is better, but, like, does it have this supreme level of execution and accountability? I don't know. They can't pick up a line stunt.
Yeah, but that's not on Eric. That's on the personnel, which he has no part in choosing.
And
that gets me to my bigger issue.
That's also 100% not true. Why do you think Andrew Wiley's here?
Because is Andrew Wiley the one blowing the stunts, or is it Ron's 7th round pick from last year blowing the stunts?
I mean, it's some of it, but also, EB could have said, like, hey, I can't operate like this at guard, and they perhaps would have done something different. I mean, EB was there in the draft room when they took Ricky Stromberg and Braden Daniels, who haven't played basically at all this year.
I don't know how much responsibility he had in terms of personnel. I don't want to speculate on that, but, like, I don't know. I think
the larger point is like, EB, the receivers, for instance, like, are they hitting all the right splits? Are they hitting all the right stuff?
But is that on him? Or think about and this goes for defensive backs as well, with Chris Harris leaving and now all of a sudden that group falling apart. Drew Terrell goes and all of a sudden the receivers are playing with zero detail.
I mean,
that's real.
It's part of it, but, like, EB hired the guy that replaced him. So, like, my thing is like, EB is having enough trouble getting this offense consistent every week. And that's not actually me saying that, like, EB is not a good coach. It's like, it's a new offense. You have, like, Kyle Shanahan will tell you it takes 3 years to get a system down. They are 12 games into this, and he's got a quarterback who's 13 games into his career. EB's hands are full. And the thing I think what I would tell you is that people need to understand, Lynnell, you across from me at this table need to understand is this season is over. Like, pull the Vince Carter, it's over.
You too, Craig? I was on with AWOD earlier
look
today.
At the math.
Said the same thing.
Look at the math.
The math ain't mathing when you look at the entire body of work this National Football League season. I think one thing has been proven. It is the definition of any given Sunday. I understand the next 6 weeks look like a daunting task. But There have been crazier upsets this year than Washington going to Dallas on Thanksgiving. There have been crazier upsets this year than Washington beating Miami at home. So when you take a deep breath and you just look at where they are right now in the standings, you're 2 games back in the loss column of Minnesota, whose quarterback situation is worse than yours.
Sure.
And they haven't been flawless. The team, my point is, I wouldn't say the season's over because the teams that are in front of you are just as flawed as you are.
But your schedule's a nightmare, and you stink. The
schedule could be a nightmare now, but Tua can go get hurt on Sunday.
They started 2-0.
They did.
They're 4-7.
I get that.
They're 30th in defensive DVOA. They've given up the most points in the league.
This is not me trying to say this is a good football team. This is me saying I know better with this group to not put the lid on them.
But my point is, what are you trying to salvage?
It's not even about salvaging anything. The next 6 weeks.
Then what is it about?
What
is it about? That's ultimately what I'm trying to get to, right? Like, what is it that you are trying to save? Is my question here that is worth shaking up the staff and doing this stuff versus just, hey man, let's get to the end of the season, let's land the plane, and let's go out in a field full of candidates with one of the best jobs
why not get a head
on the
start,
market.
Greg?
How are you getting a head start?
Because you would get to go look at the field.
They can look at the field right now.
Yeah, but
they can't bring anybody in.
Of course not.
That's the thing, is if you could truly get a head start, 100% for it. But there are no candidates that you want that don't currently have jobs.
Fair, unless you consider EB to be a candidate, which I don't know. I'm not. We'll obviously have these discussions in more detail as we get closer to the offseason, but I'm just not willing to write off Eric Bieniemy as a head coaching candidate. I'm impressed with what he's come here and done, considering the sum of the parts that he's working with.
I like some of what he has done. I do not think that there is consistency enough with the way, and I also
he's not even getting consistency at quarterback though. Y'all want him to be a consistent play caller, yet he's not getting consistent play from his players. It's hard to call plays when you don't know.
But
if
it's
a guy's
chicken
gonna be able
and
to execute.
to me, it's a chicken and the egg thing. Which one's which? You overloaded this quarterback early, and you wonder why you couldn't get consistent play. It's because you're asking a guy who's barely played NFL football to throw it more than anybody else in the league. There hasn't been an ability to find solutions, and I talk to people, you talk to people. I don't know that there's unanimous kumbaya feelings about the offense in that locker room. I don't know that him being elevated or him being empowered would go over great with everybody. And there's been frustration that has leaked out of that locker room this year.
You know what? And this is no offense, and this, I guess, is my next overreaction. I don't think anybody on that roster, in the big picture, we overvalue our own talent. I feel like just looking at Sunday and the guys that are supposed to be your best guys, I don't know. I'm at a big head-scratching point with this roster in terms of, and this is something I'll talk about tonight on Overtime, who is a blue-chip player on this roster? Who is an inexpendable piece in terms of the big picture moving forward with the offseason? Because we're all excited about the draft capital that we have for moving Chase and Montez. You can get a hell of a lot more if you shed some of the fat on this roster.
Okay, I think that probably is a bit of an overreaction depending on how far you take that statement. So let's couch it, come back to it next, talk about it. It's the Hoffman Show. Lynnell with us on an Overreaction Tuesday here on the Team 980. First, though, a look at what's trending. Lynnell with us on an Overreaction Tuesday. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Again, that's Lynnell Willingham. I am Craig Hoffman. You can catch him on Overtime tonight, 1067 The Fan. Are you in with Russell tomorrow?
I am in with Russell. Oh, God, this is going to be a week. I'm in with Russell tomorrow.
And then
he's on fire right now.
Do you have stuff that you're doing Thursday, Friday too? I think Thursday Denton's the only one doing a live show, right?
No, I got the post game.
Oh, you got post game on
down
Thursday.
the post game. Quick turnaround for the youngest in charge. Post game till 9, and then me and Doc are in for the junkies the next morning.
Ah. Nothing wakes you up quite like a shot of Doc Walker.
Oh, I'm telling you. Oh,
4 hours, and God, man, if they were, I don't even want to go there. Let's just 6 to 10 on
6 to 10, baby.
on Friday morning, and then Sheehan's in, and us afternoon schlubs are taking the day off.
Good for you guys. You all deserve it, man.
I need a day off. I need many days off, but rest will come later. That's what the off season's for. When we'll have a coaching search. Okay.
Rest.
All right. So you have this blue. It's an Overreaction Tuesday. Let's put this in its proper form. Let's put the packaging on it. Put it in the right size box. Give me the blue chippers take.
Yeah, I think, and it goes back to your comment of if based on some things that we're hearing around the building and the locker room, that like players may not be all on board for Eric Bieniemy taking over as the head coach. And I say to hell with the players at this point. Not saying I don't care about the players personally. I think they all work extremely hard. I don't think their issues on Sundays are for a lack of effort. But I think it's a dangerous thing that we do here locally, and I'm a fan just like you all are, so don't think I'm putting myself above you. We have this tendency to overvalue our own talent. And I think as the 11 games this season have gone on, I think it's very obvious that we're doing so. We've done it really at every major position. Last year, I thought we did it with the defensive tackles. I thought this year at a certain point in time, we did it with Sam. I think it's been done with Terry McLaurin, who is an all-world person and human being, but I think there's some shortcomings he has at wide receiver. I look at this roster, and I ask you this, Craig. Is there anyone that you would consider a bona fide blue chipper? They're walking into another team's building and starting 100%. I'll phrase it like that, and I'll say, is there anybody that you would just not trade under any circumstances?
There's 3 guys that come to mind. And just to be clear, by the way, on the EB thing, I haven't heard that like players would be upset. It's just like we've heard frustration with Bieniemy and how the offense is, and and how some of the lack of adjustments. And I don't know that. And just generally speaking, like we know he's a hard coach. I do think the story in the preseason got blown out of proportion. I don't change anything I said at the time about how that all went down. But I do think at the end of a long season, going to like a hard coach in a lost season, if he's just going to grind on these guys, like I don't know that that's the best thing to do. I think just like let it ride and then figure out what you want to do in the offseason. So just clarifying that. The 3 guys, Terry is a legitimate blue chipper. Like, is he on Jamar Chase's level? No, he's not. But is he on the next level? Yeah, he is. Like, he's legitimately great. He has had crap-tastic quarterback play here for most of his career, and he's been a 1,000 to 1,200 yard receiver every year without fail. And he's going to do that again, and it doesn't even feel like he's having that great of a year. He is so much better than people realize. And part of that, too, is like if he would go to a San Francisco, one of these top-flight offenses that generates big shots, God, if he went to Kansas City and he was in the position that Marquez Valdez-Scantling was in last night, he's catching that ball. And by the way, he would have had a bunch more. Like, he's just so, to me, misutilized. And this offense hasn't necessarily been able to unlock him in the way that I think it should have. And you watch the tape every week and you're like, he probably should get the ball in that spot. And also, I think one of the things that's kind of funky about him is he's not an elite separator, but he's a great contested catch guy. And so you have to throw it to him and trust him.
Craig, that's the one thing I will push back on. I think last year he was a great contested catch guy. This year he's come up small.
He hasn't been as
moments.
good. That's fair. Not as good, but which is why you'd prefer a separator, which is why you prefer a JJ, why you prefer a Jamar Chase.
And this, I didn't say that to Terry's probably the guy that I would have the hardest time
and also from like a character whatever standpoint. Like I have a really hard time trading Terry. I know John Allen hasn't had a good year, but to me this has been a down year on what has been a pretty hard to pick apart career. John Allen has been awesome. And he is he quite the leader that he sometimes is lionized at his absolute best? Like, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, I know he's skipped out on a couple of post games this year, and I know he's been really frustrated at times. And it does seem like when they've had some problems with like Chase and discipline and whatever, it's like, dude, you're in the room. Like, let's go. But he's disruptive as hell. Like, he is a forced defensive tackle. And Duran, same thing. Like, last year he was great.
Is he disruptive enough?
Does that mean that I wouldn't trade them for a first round pick, or certainly first round picks? No. It's not like they're untouchable, but like, you'd have to pay me a lot to part with John and Duran. Those two dudes are special. I think they've done a bad job this year of building a defense around them. I think you're starting to see John play a lot better with Casey there next to him. They have a much better rapport. And at the end of the day, like, I think that those are good players that have been mismanaged by a bad coaching staff on defense. And to not call them blue chippers because they have had down years and what has been a down year period is being... Like, I'm not saying you're disrespecting them as human beings, but is slightly disrespectful to them as players. That would be my response to that.
The Terry thing is where I think you have your best argument in terms of impact and what he would do on other teams. With John and Duran,
how many dudes are truly better than them? Like Aaron Donald, sure. Leonard Williams is right there. Chris Jones. Like, I'm not saying there aren't 5 or 8 guys better, but like, they're starting on almost every team in the league.
And I get that. It's more so what I've seen through these 11 weeks. And I know John has the Liz Frank caveat, and he may have surgery at season's end, so that may have impacted, like, his ability to play the game. But for him, just looking at it specifically from a tape standpoint, need more of an arsenal of moves from an inside guy. I need him to be more impactful rushing the passer. I need him to play behind the line of scrimmage more often. But, like, that's just me nitpicking. I think bigger picture, where that statement goes to, what's the commonality between all those 3 guys?
Well, they were here before Rivera.
Bingo.
So, like,
all drafted by the previous regime. And I think that's my bigger picture point. I think the past 4 years, we should do a study on it, of bad coaching tenures during the 2000s.
There aren't many worse from a talent acquisition standpoint.
Had to sit and listen to Ron cry to Chick Hernandez the other night about how he's had it rough.
I mean, he has. Like, let's not.
The cancer thing I get, and I think he is a
dude.
Warrior
Dealing with Dan,
dude.
Are you kidding me? Like, that's a nightmare.
Are they influencing personnel picks?
Yes.
No. Dan didn't influence not one of Ron's draft picks. He couldn't have.
Chase. And not that they would have necessarily done something different, but Chase absolutely was influenced. And I think the general incompetence of the owner trickles down to a lot of other things from the, one, like, to be very clear, and I feel like I was the first one to be like, hey, everybody who wants to throw a pity party for Ron Rivera, he signed up for this. Like, and he could have stepped down especially when all the stuff came out that personally implicated Dan. He could have said, I'm not going to be your fall guy here. I'm out. I can't work for you. And at the end of the day, Ron Rivera on his resume is someone who worked for Dan Snyder. And that is just a fact. So this is not necessarily to
but Craig,
this isn't to excuse Ron in that way. It's just to say, like, yes, dealing with Dan, and like, he had to deal with way more stuff from Dan than he ever thought he was going to. The cancer stuff, absolutely. And it's not like, well, once you're done with chemo, that's done. Like, we don't know what kind of medical situations he's been dealing with the last couple of years, because that was really scary, and he had to go through a lot. The DEA stuff, like, yeah, it was his guy that he brought here, but like, he didn't know that Ryan Vermillion was doing whatever he was doing. Like, that, some of the stuff he's had to deal with is insane. But at the same time, he hasn't done a good job.
I think that's the bigger point.
So, like, those two things can be happening at once. And so, like, to me, it's like saying, it's the difference between being like, that guy's a bum, and being like, that guy's not very good at his job, but I have empathy for him.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I just try to keep the empathy piece.
One thing I will say is whoever's neutered and trained Sam Howell for his pressers, I mean, attaboy to you. If Ron just answered the pressers the way the damn quarterback did, we wouldn't have all the clickbait that we have.
I mean, I think this is why I actually, like, part of the reason I believe in Sam is because I don't think he's like PR spinning it. Like, I think that's how his brain operates.
Yes.
And by the way, I will say, like, there's a lot of stuff that Bieniemy says that I'm like, what the hell is that? And that does give me pause. As you know, I do think EB is probably trying to play the game, and he's just bad at playing the game. And I'd be much more interested in his actual thoughts. So I don't really hold the press conferences against EB, but it's like a small thing. Whereas like Ron's out of his.
I mean, he's
depth.
getting up to the podium and lying, and I don't even call it lying. He's talking to reporters and us as a fan base, fans, we can just call it that, like we're stupid.
Yeah.
Like to sit up there and talk about how good your culture is. I've never associated a losing record with a good culture. You had the DEA raid. Your number 2 pick at defensive end was basically telling you to go run amok and go do whatever to yourself. You couldn't get him to line up in a 3-point stance consistently. I haven't seen him stand up once in San Francisco. Your other first-round pick at linebacker can't stop playing Hot Wheels on the damn highway. I mean, it's ridiculous, some of the stuff that goes on. And for you to come back and turn around and say the culture's good, Landon Collins told you where he was and wasn't going to play. And we're talking about culture.
Yeah, no, I mean, is the culture better from like, hey, it's a safer place to work than what it was? Yeah, but that's a culture that was an upgrade from, hey, we probably won't be investigated by Congress versus like what they have going on in the best places.
By the way, that
around.
didn't even really have a lot to do with him.
No, it didn't. It didn't. And that's what I'm saying. Like, has he changed the culture from that? Sure.
Kind of.
To what, though? To a winning culture? To a culture that's going to harbor the best from its players? No, and that's the other thing, too, just to kind of close out on the point where we started this back half segment here. I don't know what's on this team because I do not think they have been coached well. And there is a lot of raw talent that with a better staff, I think you could see a very quick turnaround because you not only have money in draft picks, but I think you have some potentially good players here that with better direction and organization could be pretty good. But we'll find out next year.
We'll see.
That's Lynnell Willingham. He's going to go get ready for overtime, half an hour away over on 106.7 The Fan. You can catch him on 980 again here tomorrow in with Chris Russell. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's Overreaction Tuesday. More Hoffman Show next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. 25 minutes away from Maryland basketball pregame here on the Team 980. I should know this. Victor, who do the Terps have tonight?
I believe it's UMBC.
That is correct. That is right. I just like,
nice.
Why am I blanking on this? But yeah, they got UMBC tonight. First game for them. I saw this the other day. Is this true? This is their first game where they would be outside the top 25 in 13 years?
I mean, what does that mean?
Like they're not ranked.
Well, they've always been not ranked for a while.
I thought that's what I thought, but I saw something crazy. Maybe I read that wrong. Maybe it was someone else.
They weren't even ranked their last game.
No, they were ranked going. Or no,
No.
that's true. What Maryland?
They've been unranked for a while.
Maryland.
Even last season.
Not ranked in top 20. I saw a headline. I was like, "There's no way that's right." Oh, it's the women's team. That's what it was, which makes a lot more.
I believe they're one. They beat Syracuse on Sunday.
Maryland's 13-year run in the Associated Press women's basketball poll has come to an end after a week that saw even more chaos in the top 25. Terrapins have been ranked for 251 consecutive weeks, second longest active streak behind UConn, before falling out on Monday. South Carolina, the unanimous number one. So they beat Syracuse, but that was after they had lost last week. And they apparently did too much losing. And that makes a lot more sense because I was like, Terps men have definitely been out of the top 25. They've had many coasters of rolling over the last couple of years.
It's like when the sun comes up every time in the morning. Same thing with Maryland. Not ranked.
Not ranked. Not good. Not a good start for old Kevin Willard's club this year. Vic, what do you thought of the show today? How have we done today?
We did a good job. I liked having Logan on. I like Lynnell. Anytime Lynnell comes in and just lays it out there, he keeps it 100 all the time. And I always love his passion. So I think it's been a good show.
Okay. Now, we've been talking about Ron just landing the plane. Now we need to land the plane.
Good thing I'm not a pilot.
No,
you're the pilot in this instance.
Oh, I don't know. When we think of this show and pilots, do you know the origin story of this scream?
No.
Sorry, I maybe should have played that a little bit quieter.
No.
I just think I broke Vic's ears.
Yeah.
Whoa, what? That's not that wasn't. I didn't do that. What just happened?
I don't know. That might have been my headphones.
Are your headphones too? How loud do you have your headphones?
It's pretty loud. Pretty loud.
They must be at like a Chris Russell level.
Yeah.
I come in here every day and I'm like, yeah.
Which is why that scream killed me.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry
about that. Yeah.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Not Vic's like not anymore. I used to because I used to have eardrums that focused.
I think you'll have to hit the brake. I can't hear you. If the levels disappear, I'll hit the brake.
Okay. We're not gonna hit the brake yet. We need like 3 minutes more of content here. But the origin story of this scream. It's not any louder than my voice. Don't you make that face.
It's like nails on a chalkboard for me.
Okay. Well, anyway, there was I promise this ties back to a pilot and a plane.
All right.
There was a story where the Army, or I guess it would probably have been the Air Force, lost a fighter jet. There was a training exercise in South Carolina, and just an F-16, whoopsie, went missing. And they interviewed, and like this plane like magically reappeared. And by the way, they lost it because it was in stealth mode. And turns out stealth mode works. Can't find the plane. Uh-oh, whoopsies. The radar doesn't work. It's in stealth mode. And so the pilots had ejected, and the plane kept going. And they interviewed someone who I guess was near like where it eventually landed / crashed. And they asked this guy like, "Oh, tell me about it." And it's like, all of a sudden I heard this noise. And then, should I hit it again, or are you going to be very upset if I? Okay,
I turned it down.
And then, he said, I heard this noise, and that was the way he described how the plane sounded.
Wow, can't make this stuff up.
No, way too stupid to make up. Speaking of too stupid to make up, in a text exchange with my wife today, I might have stumbled on / we might have stumbled on the origin of a phrase that I certainly have used all the time. And I must know if we are correct in stumbling into this phrase's origin story. I have intentionally not looked it up to see what the origin of this very common phrase is. And it's one that like all of us use and I've never thought about before. Like one of those idioms where you're like, I've never actually thought about why we say that thing. And so coming up next, before Real Things, which by the way, we have a couple of good ones coming up. Very funny sound bites after yesterday's Ron Rivera rant during Real Things. I'm going to look up the origin of the phrase bat bleep crazy. And if that doesn't make you want to stick around, well, we're just not going to be the radio show for you. It's the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. That's a funny bit. Vic didn't turn on my board for a second, and I was like, am I losing my mind? You go from, it's the Hoffman Show, to you don't hear yourself in your headphones, Vic, and it became, it's the Hoffman Show?
Yeah, that's on me. So remember I said earlier in the show that I was pretty much perfect?
Yeah.
Although off the air, people on there don't know.
No, they didn't. I totally just hung you out to dry for the sake of comedy. And also to point out the irony that you were so good. Vic is this is his last day with us today on the show, filling in for Anthony. We got Eminem tomorrow, and then Anthony will be back on Monday. But we had a whoopsie at the beginning of the show yesterday. You were perfect the rest of the show, crushed the show today, and in the very last segment, really did a crap sandwich there with your poopsie as the bread.
Oh, gosh.
You just hate to see it.
Yeah, I hate to see it. At least, but you know what? I don't feel as bad on this one as I did yesterday.
It's okay. Well, that's good, because I want to send you off into your Thanksgiving holiday with good feelings.
Yes.
I would like to engender joy out of Vic Ferreira. Speaking of poop, though, what a unbelievable transition. I'm a radio professional. So my wife today sends me this text as she is talking with her sister, who is a homeowner in Ohio. Fun fact, bat poop can cause lung cancer if you inhale the fumes of it.
Okay.
Yep. My sister had to have, here you go. My sister had to have her attic sanitized, and they can't run their exhaust fans in the bathrooms for fear of fumigating the bat poop death chamber.
Wow.
Histoplasmosis is an infection caused by breathing in spores of a fungus often found in bird and bat droppings.
Bat guano.
Yeah.
Good thing I don't have any bats nearby.
Yeah. And apparently in Ohio, bats are also a protected species where my sister-in-law lives. So the bats couldn't be removed. So they had to do some kind of thing that costs like $1,800.
Yikes.
And apparently a one-way bat door was installed, so when the bats leave to go get food, they can't come back. But the good news, apparently they were all male bats, so they won't be able to deposit more bats, if you will.
Interesting.
So I read all this, and Vic, you want to know what the question I had was?
What's your question?
Is this where the phrase bat you know what crazy comes from?
It's tracking. It's tracking, yeah.
And I thought, and Rachel thought I was being hilarious. And I was like, no, I mean, like, yeah, I'm genuinely so funny. But I wanted to know. I was like, if these spores can like cause all this stuff to happen to you, not that like lung cancer and going to the loony bin are necessarily along the same path, but I was like, I don't know. What other magical powers does this fungus have? And so, Vic, I think we should spend a moment before Real Things looking up the origin of bat bleep crazy. This is our show. According to the etymologists, anecdotal evidence suggests that the first use was from the military in the early 50s and might have been a variant of BS, the traditional kind. One of the first uses of the word as a substitute for crazy comes from Lieutenant William Kelly of the My massacre in Korea, and they killed, and they aren't all going bat bleep. The first presentation of the full phrase appears in a 1983 cartoon by P.S. Muller, the voice of Onion News Radio, captioned "Full-blown bat bleep crazy and still holding down a productive job." It seems as though, as I scrolled through this in the break, that it is because bats, like, if you've ever seen them, they like fly kind of around in these nutty looking circles that don't seem to have any
very crazy.
You have any rhyme nor reason. So it is not because bat guano has fungus in it that can kill you and perhaps does something to you along the way. It's because bats look like they're crazy.
How about that?
I'm trying to learn people stuff. Sometimes it's leverage in cover one, and sometimes it's the origin of the phrase bat bleep crazy.
I might watch Ace Ventura differently now with the bat story in one of those movies. Now I'm going to be thinking about that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, time to wrap up this shenanigans with real things, real people said into real microphones. Speaking of stuff that has to get bleeped, we didn't get a chance to get to this one yesterday. Deonte Banks, he a Terp, and he apparently wanted to stay in the state of Maryland to play his professional football. And he thought the Commanders were going to take him at 16, and then they didn't, and now he's 2-0 against them, and he had things to say about it on Instagram Live in the locker room after he couldn't take a hot shower after the game.
Really personal. Really personal. It could have came and got me at 16. Stop playing, man. It could have came and got me at 16, and it didn't. Now I'm 2-0 against you bum-ass boys. Commanders. They think they slick. They finna see me 2 times a year until the end of my career. 2 times a year. Should have came and got me. I'm just trying to figure out, though. Did 17 play today? That's all I want to know. Did he play today? Did he play? I just want to know if he played.
I mean, look. You've played 12 games for a 3-and-whatever football team. Y'all stink. Terry McLaurin has a bunch of 1,000-yard seasons in this league. You played well. There were no actual targets to McLaurin on Banks, which makes it hard to judge. It wasn't like he was shadowing him the whole time. I mean, obviously, if there were no targets, doesn't seem like he would have been open a whole lot. Not like Terry had a terrible game. But if I'm Terry, I can't wait to play this kid next year and just destroy him. And if I'm Deonte Banks, I certainly hope that pass rush that perhaps saved my bacon a couple of times and has throughout the season continues to be as good. Because if the Commanders can have an O-line and Terry has time, I can't wait for that. But I also really like Deonte Banks as a player, and I kind of wish they did take him at 16. We'll see who winds up being the better player, him or Forbes. Forbes seems a lot more cool, calm, and collected, but for defensive players, I care about that a little bit less.
Do you think there's 23 other teams, though, he's going to be doing that to? I mean, it just seems like he's singling out Washington in this particular.
Yeah, I think it's because, they took a corner, and a corner that a lot of people think is not as good as Deonte Banks, and it's like, hey, I was underneath your nose. I played my college football, 3 miles? What's the difference? How far is it from FedEx Field to campus at Maryland? Maps.google.com. What do you I guess you're definitely a Google Maps guy because you don't have an iPhone.
I do not.
Vic's a green texter.
Yeah.
Let's see. FedEx Field.
While you're searching, Carl Banks responded saying, "Save that S for Thanksgiving dinner with the fam, not social media."
That's funny. We want to go to, what is it? We want to go to University of Maryland at College Park. It's 9 miles, College Park to FedEx.
Pretty short.
Yeah. Not great. Not great. At least on Sunday. Everything was not great about Sunday. What was great about... Oh, yeah, we have time to play this. What was great about Saturday was the F1 race in Vegas. A lot of fun events leading up to. And the drivers were asked, if you could go on a night out in Vegas with 2 other drivers, who would you go out with?
If you had to go on a night out with 2 other drivers, who are you picking and why?
Wait, are you old enough to drink?
Shots fired at Yuki Tsunoda.
I would pick Yuki first. We've heard some fun stories of Yuki. I feel like midway through the night, he's going to be doing handstands, shirtless. I don't know, maybe Carlos, because he'll sing. I know he loves Smooth Operator, and I love karaoke, so.
Didn't know Lewis Hamilton was a big karaoke fan.
I will not say what Max and Daniel.
Yeah?
Daniel, good fun. Max picks up the bill.
I think that's a good thought from Lando Norris.
I don't know if you know this, but Bottas, I wouldn't take anyone because they'll slow me down.
So that was Daniel Ricciardo saying, like, hey, you want a real good time, Valtteri Bottas, and then Bottas saying, like, yeah, I'm a good time. It would slow me down. So, seems like there's actually some consensus there. All right, that's our very silly radio show on this Tuesday. We'll be back for one more tomorrow, and then obviously get you ready for Cowboys and Commanders. If you want more film review on the Giants, check out Take Command, and we will see you tomorrow. Maryland Hoops next here on the Team 980.